Hello guys, hi, what's good? Hello, if you can't tell, I just did my hair, so now I don't know how to act. My name is Azaria, and on this channel I post vlogs, weekly vlogs, and rants about topics that I think are important. So I'm gonna ask you guys to pause this video, go ahead, give this video a thumbs up because it's gonna be great. Like, so be sure to like it, subscribe, and share my channel with anybody who you think might be interested so that we can grow and be like a family, because a family is important, okay? Now, disclaimer, I'm sorry, I'm gonna be flashing my hair a lot this vlog, because if you watch this video, because if you watch last week's video, you know my hair was hair. This week my hair is like hair. So we're gonna get into today. Today I'm gonna be telling you things that my therapist told me that I think you guys need to hear, because I know a lot of you guys aren't going to therapy, and that's not right, because a lot of you guys need therapy, okay? Okay, so the first thing, before I even get into the things that my therapist told me, is I feel like we are in an era where mental health is becoming a lot more mainstream. Not mental health, the importance of mental health is becoming a lot more mainstream, and a lot of people are recognizing just how important it is to make sure that you're taking care of your mental health and that you're not just suppressing everything like we've been taught to do. And I find that a lot of Gen Zs are in constant conversation and constantly communicating with their friends, with their peers, and with themselves about what their mental health is currently like. I also feel like we're in an era where mental, what do you call that? Mental illness. I also feel like we're in an era where mental illnesses aren't as frowned upon as they were, like even just 5 years ago. Not to mention when our parents were growing up, I feel like we have become a lot more accepting of people with mental illnesses, and a lot of people with mental illnesses have started to become more comfortable with going out there and getting the help that they need. And so I do just want to pause here to say that if you or anybody that you know, well, you would know, would you? If you are struggling with anything, if you're going through depressive episodes, if you're getting anxiety, if you feel like you might have some sort of mental health issues, I really do encourage you to go ahead, get that checked out. There's nothing embarrassing about wanting to live a happy, healthy, normal life, and focusing on your mental health is one of the things that you need to do to be able to do that. So as I was saying, I feel like we're in an era where all of these things are coming to the forefront. A lot of people are now in content conversation, but I feel like as we get into this era, we need to not forget the era that we're coming from, right? Because a lot of us, we go to therapy, we learn things, and then we expect that the whole world's gonna change. And one thing that my therapist did say is not because you are working on yourself means that everybody else is also working on themselves. Not because you feel like you're now in a better position and you can make better decisions and see things more clearly means that everybody else can see things more clearly. And that includes our parents. I feel like a lot of the times we are so hard on our parents for things that they can't even control. Like, it's not their fault. A couple factors affect this. Number one, people our age who, I guess it depends on your socioeconomic, like there are lots of factors that influence this, but typically a lot of us are having children later than our parents used to have children. Most of the times our parents are having children like 16, 17, 18, 19 if they were lucky. So they really didn't get a chance to go through this healing period that a lot of us are going through in our early 20s. And so I feel like we need to be mindful that your parents are living with scores of years of trauma just bottled up somewhere deep inside. And when they raised you, even though they might have done a shit show of it, they did the best that they could with the resources that they had. And at the time, the resources that they had did not include therapists, okay? While some of us might have been lucky to have had parents who went to therapy, to have had parents who tried, even those parents who are trying are still gonna make mistakes. And I know that everybody's situation is different, but I wanna make that disclaimer that now that you're moving forward, you're getting better, doesn't mean that the rest of your family is getting better too. And I know that for some people that means that you might have to cut your family off if that's what you think you have to do. But for others, if you want to stay in touch with your family and you want to stay connected with your family, it's really important to recognize that not because you are healed or are healing means that they are healing too. they be doing they're dealing with their own things. Anyway, so getting into things my therapist told me that I think you need to know. The number one that's going to impact your relationship with everybody, even yourself, are setting boundaries. I worked with my therapist for a very long time on the concept of setting boundaries. I was just like so flabbergasted, like I can just say no, and she's like, yeah, you can. I'm like, can I? What's the catch? What's the catch? Because I don't think I could just say no. Like, but you actually can. And the first step to setting boundaries, I got to understand, is knowing what your values are. Because you might think you are against something, and you're not actually against that thing. You're against the consequences of that thing. But you're like, oh yeah, like I don't drink. But your issue isn't drinking. Your issue is throwing up when you have a hangover. Does that make sense? I hope that made sense. So we did a lot of work on like knowing what your values are, and not the values that you've been taught to have, the values that you actually want to have. That's its a whole nother thing. So when you get a chance, go through, think the things that you've been taught. How much of them do you agree with? How much of them don't you agree with? How much of them do you want to keep? Because now that you're an adult, you really have to do that and figure that out for yourself. So that's the first thing I learned from my therapist, how to identify my values. Then we worked on communicating those values, because you might think you have a value that you hold dear, and not because you know that you hold this value dear to you means that everybody else knows. So you have to find healthy ways of communicating those values, and one of those ways are through setting boundaries. A lot of us are saying yes to things we know we need to start saying no to, and that includes sometimes saying no to your family, which I previously said, saying no to your friends, and saying no to yourself, which if we're being honest, a lot of you guys don't do enough. So saying no to yourself and setting those healthy boundaries. The next thing that we spoke about is, after setting those boundaries, like, people can set the boundaries, that's fine, but my therapist pointed out one time that not because you set the boundary means that they're going to accept it readily. If people have lived their whole lives if people have lived their whole relationship with you, having a certain type of access to you, being able to say what they want to say, do what they want to do, and then you're gonna be like, no, that's not okay, they're gonna be like, what? Child. Anyway, so they're just gonna keep on doing what they've been doing because that's how they've been conditioned. So now you need to like go through and decide, hey, do I want to keep this person in my life? And if I want to keep this person in my life, then I'm going to have to help them relearn how to have a relationship with me. Platonic romantic services. I'm going to have to help them relearn how to have a relationship with me, and that some things that I used to do and I used to stand for are no longer acceptable. And that in itself is very hard, because let's say you were the person who just whenever your friends are like, hey, come outside, we're going on a ride, you're like, okay, yeah, let's go. But then you realize that that's impacting your productivity, because your friends always want to go on rides. It's impacting your financial health because your friends always want to go eat out. And now you want to set the boundary of, if we're going out, you need to let me know 24 hours in advance. Your friends are not just gonna be like, oh yeah, well, like she said it once, so let's just make a no. If they do, great. But 90% of the times, they're not going to. So you have to keep on reiterating and not just going when they call you the next time because you feel bad and you want to go, but sticking to your boundary and realizing, hey, this is something that I said and I really need you guys to take this seriously. The other thing that we spoke about when like setting boundaries is not setting boundaries as a joke and not being like, you can't talk to me like that. No. Be like, you can't talk to me like that, and I really don't appreciate when you do. And trust me, that's uncomfortable. Like telling somebody, no, don't talk to me like that, or no, you cannot behave like that to me is uncomfortable. And I'm gonna give you guys like a whole story time of how I set a boundary with somebody that ended up with me being homeless. Anyways, so setting boundaries and like knowing how to set your boundaries, and not just in like a haha laughy way, but like being serious and straight. Yes, some people are going to be butthurt, and some people are probably even going to cut you off. But at the end of the day, that's not really a loss, because like, hey, you set a boundary, they upheld it, because now they're not bothering you, even though they've cut you off. Now, the next thing, my laughs are so weird. The next thing I worked on my therapist with is recognizing my emotions. And I know a lot of us think we know ourselves, but we actually don't. And I did quite a couple sessions with her just on recognizing your emotion and labeling it before you like suppress it. So most of the times I was told that when you're angry, it's not necessarily because you're angry. It's probably because you're feeling something else. You feel hurt, so you react in anger. You feel annoyed, so you react in anger. You feel confused, so you react in anger. So my therapist and I went through this whole phase where I was encouraged to sit back, take stock of how I'm feeling, and then identify that feeling. One great way to do this if you are completely new is by using an emotion wheel. And like my friends can tell you about the emotion wheel. I feel like, oh, I feel away right now, but I don't know how I'm feeling. Let me get my emotional wheel out to then identify how I'm feeling. And what this does, it helps you with your reactions. Because if somebody does something to you and it hurt you, if you did not recognize that emotion as you being hurt, but instead you thought, oh, well, they did something to me and now I'm angry, and then you just up and cut them off, right? They might be confused as to why did she cut me off or he cut me off. And you might be confused, like when you get over your hurt, you might be like, oh, I really wish I could be friends with people again. But it's too late because you already reacted thinking that you were angry. So you reacted with an action that was appropriate for anger. Whereas if you took a step back and you took a look at what am I actually feeling? How am I actually doing? You would be able to say that, oh, I'm not angry, I'm hurt. And then you could communicate to that person, hey, this is how I'm feeling. I feel hurt. And you could explain to them why you feel hurt, an emotion that you now understand. And then they themselves can do what they want with that emotion. So like working on identifying your feelings, it's its own thing. And sometimes it gets awkward because like something will happen and you're like, I need to process this. And then people think you're mad at them because you're like processing your emotions. So I always I try to tell my friends like, hey, I'm not mad at you. I'm just processing some things. Then I come back and I'm like, actually, I am mad at you. Now that I think about it, I actually am mad at you. So that's the other thing I learned from my therapist, how to process my emotions or how to identify my emotions and then have an appropriate reaction for the emotion that I identified. The next thing I learned from my therapist is how not to let how people perceive me affect me. Now, let me explain. So you might be going through your level up journey. You might be working on your self-healing, and people perceive you as being stuck up because, hey, you're working on yourself, or people perceive you as being a B, or they think that you are like whatever they want to think. I can't think of more adjectives. My 1% going on here. But I have learned that 90% of the times, people's reaction to you is not necessarily about you, which is very hard because a lot of us, myself included, live in this world where everything's about us. So if you are mad, it has definitely got to be about me because we're all self-centered like that. Not all of us. A lot of us are self-centered like that. So my therapist had to help me work through and understand that someone's reaction and treatment of me does not necessarily have to do with me and my intrinsic value. Could be A, something that they're going through by themselves internally, or B, their perception of who I am. That's necessarily not who I actually am. So yeah, that's something very important. And I want to piggyback on my first point, whereas people are going through their own things. That's something that I feel like a lot of us need to realize. Yes, you are going through something, but guaranteed that the person who you're beating and fretting yourself over is probably going through something too that's probably not about you. So that's important to think about. And then the other thing I learned from my therapist, and the final point here, because I don't want this video to be 30 minutes like the last one. The other thing that I'm going to share with you guys that I learned from my therapist is that two more things. Firstly, it's okay to be sad. And I know that there is this thing in popular culture where you shouldn't be sad. You should be happy all the time. And if you're having a depressive episode, then what's wrong with you? You need to get out, smell the roses, feel the sunshine. But my therapist told me it's okay. When I couldn't see her for 3 weeks because it was Christmas and New Year's and they don't work then, she was like, if you ever feel like you are going to have a breakdown and you ever feel like you need to take a step back, that is completely fine. Go in a corner. You can schedule sad time. schedule 25 minutes to sit and feel sorry for yourself. That is okay. You are allowed to feel, have, and experience those emotions. Those emotions are valid, and don't let popular culture take those emotions away from you, because anger, sadness, and despair is on the emotional wheel. And then the final thing that my therapist taught me, that I in turn want to teach to you, is journal. Get your thoughts out. If you don't journal, record videos, talk to yourself, record audios, talk to yourself and say things out loud. The reason for this is our brains are wired in a way where you don't necessarily finish your thoughts if you are saying it inside your head. You think you do, but you don't actually, because you're like thinking about 15 different things at once. But when you journal, I journal, like this is my journal. When you journal, you are able to like get these things out onto paper, right? You are able to finish those thoughts as you're thinking them, and you're just like moving from one to the next without actually finishing the complete thought. And I find that when I journal, something that I would have moved on from and not have taken note of, now that I'm taking my time to write it down, I notice it and I can spend more time with it. I can pay attention to it. And the other thing I love about journaling is, let's say I'm like out of my depressive episode and I go back, I can look at how I was feeling, what triggered that feeling, what was going on around that time, and it helps me to then move forward. And I can also bring my journal to therapy and be like, hey, now I'm happy and I'm dandy, but 2 days ago I was literally having panic attacks every 5 minutes, which honestly, if you've had a panic attack, it's not fun. So that's the other thing that my therapist taught me, and I do want to do a quick ad right here. You might have noticed already, but I'm kind of like obsessed with K-pop, and I'm obsessed with journaling. Actually, hang on, let me show you my journal. Runs to the room. Bam, baby. So I have my journal, and it is literally my only way of staying sane. If you don't know, I go to therapy, and my therapist recommended that I get a journal, so now I have a journal. But I wanted to show you guys something that has helped me to like journal better, are like adding stickers. And I love adding K-pop stickers in particular. Whenever I'm writing about like anything difficult, I always add K-pop stickers. So I thought, wouldn't it be so cool to just have like printed pages that I can journal on without having to go through the process of adding the stickers? And that is exactly what I created on my Etsy store. They are K-pop inspired journal pages that you can print out, bore 3 holes in the side of them, put them in your journal or your binder or whatever you use to journal, and honestly just like have fun journaling, because I really enjoy journaling, but I love it even more when it's connected to K-pop or just anything pretty. So click the link in my description down below and enjoy journaling. So there you have it, things that my therapist taught me that I think you need to know. I hope you found this video helpful. I know last video I said I was going to do a vlog this week, and I was planning on doing a vlog, but then I just had so many things to do this week and I didn't get to vlog anything. So sorry, but thank you guys so much for watching my video. If you made it to the end, comment down below and tell me which one of these tips was your favorite, and additionally, please like, subscribe if you're not subscribed, and help us grow this channel. Thank you guys. Bye.